And the French!
Hi all, this is Skate, and this is a preview of Update 3.6 and the Frenchies. Update 3.6 will bring us 10 new tanks, starting with the Tier 1 FT, the Tier 2 D1, which are both light tanks. Then we move on to Tier 3, which is a D2, and then Tier 4, which is ugly as sin, is the B1, and then at Tier 5 we have the BDR G1B, which looks like a toy tank if I'm honest with you. At Tier 6 then we have the ARL-44, which has a monstrously good gun. And then at Tier 7 we have the AMX M445, the AMX 50-100 at Tier 8, the AMX 50-120 at Tier 9, and then the AMX 50B at Tier 10. These are all supposedly heavy tanks, however your French tanks are not conventional heavies. They are severely light in armour. What they lack in armour though, they make up for in speed and epic guns. The heavies from pretty much Tier 6 up just have fantastic guns, but they have no armour at all. In fact, I would compare them more to medium tanks than I would to heavy tanks. The first tank here though is the Renault FT at Tier 1. Basically, it's like an Otsu we already have in-game, which is the Japanese Tier 1 tank. And as I assume you've probably already noticed, down the left-hand side I've put all the basic stats, so obviously feel free to pause it and have a good run through each of them. I'll do the same for every tank as we run through. Obviously, when these tanks are on the live server, I will do a guide and review for every single one as quick as I can. Now this Tier 2 D1 is, oh my god, it's depressingly slow. And it has the same gun as the Tier 1. You've got an option of guns, but this, I find, is a great gun. It has a longer reload than the Tier 1, but you do a fair amount of damage for a Tier 2 tank. The clip will do 150 damage, which is pretty much most of somebody's health at that tier. Or about half of a Tier 3 tank. Not the best of tanks if I'm honest, but then again it is a Tier 2 tank. You're going to fly through this very quickly. And then swiftly on to the D2 at Tier 3. This isn't an autoloader with the Top Gun, and it is shockingly slow, 23 kilometers per hour, but it looks good. Don't get me wrong, the tank is really ugly, but I like what they've done with it. If you notice, it's got chains hanging off the back, it's got wraps on the back of the tank. So it's an ugly tank which has been detailed very well. Like I said though, it is very slow, it has poor armor, but it has a great gun. You'll see the rate of fire there, it literally is just picking that thing apart. Basically, the way this line works is it starts off with slow tanks which aren't very armored, and it gets better and better as you go up the line. And from Tier 6, actually no, Tier 6 is great, Tier 7 is okay, Tier 8, 9 and 10, just wow, they are fun. We will cover them in more detail momentarily. First, the B1 at Tier 4. This actually gets a slower rate of fire than the previous tank, but it has a better aim time, better gun dispersion, and you take a big jump in hit points from 390 to 600. The other thing you'll notice is this tank is a lot more mobile than the previous one. Don't get me wrong, it's still not shockingly fast, but it's very mobile compared to the previous one, and the armor is slightly better at that. You'll notice with some side scraping we have got some bounces on the go. The tier 1 to 3 of this line I probably wouldn't keep for more than 1 or 2 battles just to fly through to the next tank. This tank I could probably have a bit of fun in. You'll see from where we're shooting at the moment, the gun depression is pretty good as well. This tank won't be a bad tank to grind at all. You can get tanks which everybody's played them, you hate playing them, they drive you bonkers and you just can't wait to get through it. This one is a pleasant grind, it's not bad at all. Obviously don't forget to pause if you want to see the stats and have a good run through them. I am trying to cover the lower tiers as quick as we can so we can get as much detail in as we can from tier 6 onwards. Now the next tank is a funny looking tank. This is the BDR G1B, and I can't take this tank seriously. It looks like a Tonka tank. It's a toy, that is. My son has got a tank which looks like this one. As a result, you can't help but look at it and go, ah, it's cute. But although it's cute, it packs a punch. It's got an epic gun, this has. We are still lacking in mobility and we are still lacking in armor, but this tier 5 tank mounts a tier 7 gun with a 7.82 rate of fire, 225 damage and a big jump in penetration up to 135. I don't think this is going to be a popular tank or something people keep for too long, other than, well, the only reason you keep it is because it looks cute. But the armor will drive you insane, it really will. Pretty much 90% of things that hit you are going to penetrate. In fact, it has less armor on the hull than the previous tier 4 tank. The tier 4 had 60 on the sides, this only has 40 on the sides. And we have only jumped 50 hit points in comparison to the tier 4 variant. We have also dropped mobility slightly compared to the previous tank as well. The only real redeeming factor of this is that monstrous gun. But this is where things get very interesting. And this is where the French line really starts to shine. It's tier 6 with the ARL. Now this tank I cannot wait to play on the live server. It's considerably more mobile than the previous tank. It only has a top speed of 37 kilometers per hour, but you'll see that we've pretty much already hit that. We've also taken a massive jump in hit points up to 1000. You are basically looking at a medium tank with the hit points of a heavy tank. Couple that with the fact this thing has a tier 8 gun. And if you've already read the penetration values on the left hand side, no, it is not incorrect. This tier 6 tank has 212 penetration, along with amazing gun depression. I mean, you don't even need to aim for weak spots, you just point and shoot. And that's with the AP. The APCR on this has 259. If anybody ever needs the APCR in this tank, I would be dead shocked. Don't get me wrong, this does not behave like a heavy tank, it behaves like a medium tank. And it has sod all armor, just like a medium tank. And you'll see by ramming anything, it hurts, and it hurts a lot. It's not a heavy tank other than designation and hit points. But this is going to be very deadly at tier 6. When these go live, I will be running my heavy French tanks along with the medium tanks on my team. And it's just that penetration, I literally cannot get over it. Granted, I say that as I bounce him off the front of the Panther, but look at the angle he was at as I was shooting the upper plate. Other than that, no, the penetration on this is just ridiculous. But unless you are heavily angled on that front, you are not going to bounce a lot. That reminds me actually, I get asked a lot in the YouTube comments why I'm playing against bots. I don't always play against bots, only on the previews, and the reason being quite simply is these tanks are not even in the game yet. And as a result, to enable me to preview them, I have to play with bots because there's no one else to play with on the test server. Ah, poor Skate's lonely. No, seriously. There's no one to play with on the test server, so you have to play with bots. That doesn't mean you can't give a good preview of a tank. I know for a fact this thing is going to be a monster. Granted, it has no armor, and if you go around a corner like that, you are going to get nailed. So after having a fantastically fun time in the ARL 44, you then get to the AMX M445. This has the same great gun from the previous tank, just with a better rate of fire, but you have less armor. The armor is angled better, and this does look more like a heavy tank, but it acts more like a Cheery. Yes, you will bounce shots with this tank, as we did there, but it has not got reliable armor, and something this big you really want reliable armor with. What you do have though is another huge jump in hit points. This thing has 1,450 hit points, and it's fairly mobile. It's not as mobile as the previous tank, but it's mobile for a heavy tank. I'm just not looking at it like a heavy tank though. To me, it is basically a Cheery without the autoloader. What that basically means is this is going to be a Marmite tank. Some people are going to love it, and some people, probably most people, are going to hate it. I think it'll probably be a tough grind as well. You got a big old lump of a tank which doesn't have a lot of armor, and yeah, it's going to be hard to hide this thing. And to any SU driver or KV driver with a 152, A, please stay away from me, and B, oh, you are going to love this thing. 40mm of armor on the side, you are virtually guaranteed to pen it. But I promise it is worth the grind. The next tank along the line is considerably better and just as much fun as the ARL. The next tank would be the Tier 8 AMX 50-100. The best recommendation I can make by far on these tanks is to fit an engine boost, because oh my god, they go well for heavy tanks. I mean, look at it. It's like a medium tank. The mobility on these things is fantastic. The downside to these things is the lack of armor. It's so bad, the armor is. I mean, 90 on the front, 35 on the side, and 35 on the rear. 30 on the rear, actually. What that basically means is 90% of things firing at you will be able to penetrate you with HE, and that's including other medium tanks. I did say at the start they are more like medium tanks. Like I said, there's no armor whatsoever. They've got great mobility, but they're big. Aside from the mobility, this thing is all about that gun. This carries an autoloader, a 4-shell autoloader with a 3.3 second reload between each one, and 280 damage per shot, which basically gives you 1,120 damage per clip. You want my opinion? Statistically, this is better than the T69, which is the new, well, most recent autoloader at Tier 8, the medium tank. This is way better. I mean, okay, this thing has around, what, 22.5 second reload, that's with consumables, by the way. The T69 has 16.3 second reload. The T69 will only do 675 damage per clip. This does, well, coming up double that nearly. Couple that with the fact that the T69 only has 173mm of penetration. This has 220. Also, the gun dispersion on the T69 is 0.36. This is 0.319. That's ridiculous comparison. This also has 200 more hit points, and by the look of it, I can't say for certain, but I think it has better gun depression. All in all, to the T69, I say, haha, you have been power creeped. Seriously though, aside from the lack of armor, this thing is great. Just don't get shot with HE. I mean, look, I have the boost on. This is a heavy tank, bear that in mind. This isn't a medium tank. And look at it go. This is a heavy tank. I literally, when I first played this tank, I sat here thinking, no, it's got the wrong designation. It's got the wrong designation. It cannot be, in any circumstances, this can't be a heavy tank. It's just blisteringly fast. And to me, that makes it quite versatile. I mean, if you're reloading, you can quickly get away. If you're coming up against medium tanks, well, you can brawl with them. You've usually got more hit points than most of them because you're a heavy tank. And, well, worst case, you can play second line behind your friendly heavies, which is also a very good scenario because you can just keep things tracked and get a lot of assistance damage. If you play YOLO with this thing, you will get one clip off, then you will die. That is the downside. As long as you don't play YOLO, you'll be okay. I mean, I'm playing YOLO by here because, well, I'm an idiot. And so are those bots. So, 2 idiots combined, or actually there's 4 by there. So let's say 4 idiots combined and 1 idiot by here. It's fine. But on the live server, you can't YOLO this thing. And if you are going to YOLO it, well, at least you'll have a smile on your face as you take off somewhere between 60 and 80% of their health. I've just got to put this in there again. I'm still watching this, even after I've played it, going, this is a heavy tank. Look at the mobility on it for a heavy tank. And with that boost kicked back in, look at it go. I imagine there's people watching this who haven't heard of the AMX range before and are literally going, nah, he's got it wrong. That guy's got it wrong. It's medium tank. It's got to be a medium tank. It's just... bloody hell. I mean, look at it go. Now, the other thing I'm thinking is the fact these things are so quick, and it's a heavy tank. I can't wait to see the French medium and light tanks in Blitz. They are going to be insane. Anyway, less rambles, more tanks. The next tank is the AMX 50-120. Same thing goes for this tank as it has for the rest. It's designated as a heavy, but it is very, very mobile, and it has a fantastic gun with poor armor. The difference with this one is the armor is a little bit better than it has been previously. The last tank had 30 on the sides, or 35. This has 80 on the sides. So you can side scrape a little bit better, but it still only has 100 on the front of the hull and 100 on the front of the turret, which pretty much means Death Star drivers are going to eat these things for breakfast. But again, instead of the armor, this heavy tank has fantastic mobility, 50 kilometers per hour top speed, 40 degrees turret traverse, and 40 degrees track traverse, which, as you can see with the boost on, it makes it act more like a medium tank. And the gun is fantastic. 3 shell auto-loading clip in this, and there's only a 2.5 second reload between each one. Each shell doing 400 damage, giving you a clip damage of 1,200. The reload is a little bit longer than the last tank, with 24.6 seconds. That's with my equipment loaded. And the obvious comparison here is the T-54E1. T-54E1 has 210 millimeters of penetration, where this has 250. The APCR on the E1 has 255. It's only got 5 more than the standard AP on this. The APCR, though, 340. What the hell are you going to be shooting at to need 340 mil of penetration? That's basically tier 10 heat levels for heavy tanks, except this is APCR. Advantage that means is this won't get absorbed by spaced armor. All in all, an incredibly reliable gun on a very fast platform for a heavy tank anyway, but bad armor, so pretty much everything is going to penetrate you. I've said it at least one during this preview. At least once during this preview. It looks and it behaves more like a medium tank, just a very big medium tank. I mean, look at the way it travels across these dunes. We're easily touching 50 kilometers, which is pretty much the same sort of thing as you'd expect a Patton to be doing across here. But, the main event. This is the AMX 50B, the tier 10 French heavy tank. Again, doesn't feel like a heavy tank. I mean, look at it go. We are actually about to overtake an FV4202. It's also got 2,100 hit points, which is a nice healthy jump from 1,750 on the previous tank. Same gun as per the last time and per the last tank, except this has a gun dispersion of 0.31, and the aim time is phenomenal. It's like a laser beam, this thing is. We have also shaved a little bit off the clip reload. The clip reload on this is 22.5 seconds. And in between each shell, there is only a 2.5 second reload. Honestly, the gun on this is very, very good. You will also note the armour is a lot better on the front. It's still not reliable in any shape or form. In fact, it's very weird. You got 170mm of armour, very well angled on the hull, so you'll get a lot of bounces off the upper hull. However, no one's going to be shooting at your upper hull because your turret only has 150 and it's very easily penned. We also only have 30mm of armour on the side, which means this is a HE magnet. I am messing around here, I do apologise, it was an opportunity I could not resist. I am going to die long before him, but he is going to die. The other thing I'm not giving you a very good example of right now is the acceleration is a lot better on this tank than it was on the previous one as well. Still the same 50km/h top speed, and the turret and tractorverse is a little worse, but you can barely feel it. I'm going to assume this has good ground resistance as well. But if anyone is looking to treat these as heavy tanks, then they are going to fail miserably in them. It's not something you can brawl in unless you are guaranteed to kill the target within one clip. It's something which you want to brawl with mediums with some backup and support maybe, or you're a second line heavy, as I mentioned earlier in the video. Or you can flank. Flanking's a perfect option, especially with a gun that accurate. And the gun depression, as I mentioned earlier as well, is just great on this thing. I mean, let me give you an example. There's a mouse by there. Penetration, you're not going to struggle to pen anything with this penetration. But mouse shoots on the move and he does get one straight into me. And we can easily snipe the weak spots on the mouse even while he is on the move. I'm definitely going to be grinding this line myself. I think it's a very interesting line. The reason I say it's an interesting line is because, well, it's a heavy tank, which is fast with no armour. It's a nice mix. It's a heavium, just the opposite way round to what we know it. Usually, when you think heavium, you think Super Persian, because it's heavily armoured, but it's a medium tank. Actually, scrap that. This is more like a light tank in regards to armour, but it's actually a heavy tank. So we'll call it a light V. There we go. This, for me, henceforth, is a light V. For anyone who hasn't seen my videos before, I did warn you at the start. I am an idiot. I apologise. That was a bad joke. But aside from being a bad joke, it's also a very good way of summing up this tank. I mean, it has light tank armour, 30mm on the side. You're not side-scraping anything, and pretty much a lot of tier 10 tanks are going to be guaranteed penning the sides due to overmatch. And I do think a lot of tank destroyers are going to have a field day. If they are sniping at the back and they are not seen, and they manage to get a side shot on this, yeah, it's going to cause many people to rage. That being said, if a Death Star manages to put some hesh into this, literally anywhere it wants to, it's really going to hurt. But with only 5 seconds, pretty much to do your 1200 damage, you'll be able to get all of that damage in and run away by the time said Death Star is reloading, as an example. I'm not going to say this is going to be an easy line to play. I actually think this is going to be a very difficult line to play. Or if not difficult, it's going to be challenging. It's going to cause people to be frustrated, it's going to cause people to be angry, but it's also going to cause people to laugh their heads off. In the hands of any player who has awareness of his minimap and awareness of teams, he is going to do, or she, very well in this. Because they know when to pop out, when not to pop out, where the likely places the tank destroyers will be. If you don't pay attention to your minimap, and you don't know where the tank destroyers are, and you get nailed by them, it's going to end your day very quickly. I think that's about it for this video. That's everything previewed. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I've done a shorter review of each tank than I usually do, but like I said, it's a preview. We'll do a full review on each one in as much detail as I can. I hope you've all enjoyed the video. I personally am really looking forward to 3.6. I love grinding new tanks, especially as I've grinded every other tank in the game. So I like it when new tank lines come out because it gives me something to grind again. So thank you all for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.